Hello everybody, I'm Professor Payal Kumar. I'm Dean of Research and Management Studies at Indian School of Hospitality. I'm really looking forward to talking to all of you from Delhi, India. So I think all of us have been joined at the hip all over the world due to the pandemic, and we have shared experiences in this. I mean, all over the world, employees have had to go home, work from home over Zoom and whatever other module that we have, and employers are having to manage all this. It's been very difficult. It's been a great turmoil. Employees didn't know how to manage the work, and even managers have been, trying to juggle whatever they're expected to do. In fact, to the extent that there have been cases of managers micromanaging to the extent that they're asking their team members to send a screenshot of their laptop every hour on the hour. This pandemic has also created a very interesting phenomena in the sense that the work-life interface has also been very badly affected. There seems to be no end hour to the work. I mean, earlier you could just leave your brick and mortar office and go home, even though you get stuck in a traffic jam. But now it is that you have to kind of carry on the work even till late at night, especially since the boss knows that you're at home or nowhere else, or clients know that, right? So your phone is constantly ringing, whatever it may be. So there's been a lot of pressure on everybody, employers and employees, and of course families too. Families all over the world have faced a lot of anxiety, not just due to the social isolation. As the poet John Donne says, no man is an island. We are social beings. We need people around us. But also due to the fact that we've not been able to reach at times our loved ones who have even faced great difficulty in terms of health and also death. So this has left a lot of trauma in many families and many individuals around the world, which is quite a sad phenomena. But I would like to talk to you about cognitive biases, because during this period there has been something called a shadow pandemic. Now, what is a shadow pandemic? And that is that discrimination against women seems to have increased manifold. For example, there is a report from the National Commission of Women in India that online abuse of women has increased 5 times in the so-called online workspace. So regarding cognitive biases, I mean, why this phenomena of so much discrimination against others? So we really need to understand the biases that we have and the biases around us. There are several cognitive biases. There could be a type of bias which you're conscious about. For example, you may be racist, or you may be sexist, or you may be ageist, and you're conscious about it, you know about it. But there are many other biases which you may not be aware about. And it happens with all of us. We have unconscious biases. So I may be an employer and I'm interviewing somebody, and they may be overweight. And I may have an unconscious bias, and perhaps I'm not very fond of overweight people, and therefore I'm not susceptible to them. I'm not very friendly to them in terms of an employer to a prospective candidate. So that is an unconscious bias. I may not be aware of it. But there are, as I said, many biases that we are aware. So, for example, one could have a bias like the halo effect. Now, what is the halo effect? Halo effect means I've just met somebody, let's say I've interviewed a candidate, and I was really impressed with their personality and charisma, and I'm left with a very good impression of that person. So even if that person doesn't do some good work or does some bad act, because I have that wonderful image of that person, I will carry on thinking good of that person. Opposite of that is what we call the horn effect. Similarly, you may have a wonderful person out there, but they've left a bad impression just in one aspect, and that bad impression sticks with you perhaps more than anything else. There is also something called a pessimism bias, and this kind of warps your predictive values ahead, right? So let's say I have a pessimism bias about myself. I may be very, very well prepared for an exam, but I keep saying to myself, I'm going to fail this, there's no way I'm going to make it, right? So, we have biases against others, we have conscious biases, we have unconscious biases, and all of us are guilty of this in one way or the other. Now, how can we prevent this? How can we stop this from happening? Well, as an employer, there's many things you can do. Workshops can be conducted. on unconscious bias and how to recognize and how to do something about this in your learning and developmental programs. Or there could be some rewards that you can put in. If somebody is being very open about their biases, you can give them some kind of reward or pat on the back. And if somebody is being very vindictive and very stereotypical or racist or sexist or harassing someone else online, then it should be brought to the attention of everybody quite openly in a transparent manner. Now, what can you do about your unconscious bias on a personal level? The very first thing is to recognize that we all have unconscious biases. If we say that, no, I'm perfect, I don't have it, that itself is a problem. So you need to first of all recognize that yes, we do have unconscious biases. Secondly is, how do you know which unconscious bias you have? So there are several, online tests and surveys that you can undergo, which would help you recognize this. Or you can talk to people around you. You can ask them for feedback, not just from your friends, but from those who are perhaps not that close to you, from your employees, from your downline, from your upline, not always from your boss, but even from your subordinates. I constantly, for example, ask people about feedback about me all the time. So I gave a talk, how do you think I could have done better? And this kind of thing. One has to be very open to feedback, because very often we may have blind spots that we are not aware about, but everybody else is perfectly aware about it, okay? So it's really, really important for us to understand, yes, we have blind spots, so what can I do about it? I need to find out about it, and one has to be quite proactive in this. So number one, recognize, yes, we have unconscious biases. Number two, what can I do about it? Can I get feedback? Can I do some surveys? Can I ask people around me? Am I open? Can I make myself open to feedback and not take it personally? And then, of course, then the third thing is to actually do something about it. So say, for example, if we go back to that first example I gave, let's imagine I have a bias against people who are overweight. So then if I'm cognizant of that, then I need to be very careful about it. And if I just give you the example of one piece of research which says that generally speaking, tall men in this world, tall men in many, many different countries, this research has taken place, tend to get promoted faster than any other group. So that itself is a sign of bias, isn't it? Because tallness has nothing to do with your performance ability or your skills, right? So it's not tall women that get promoted more or short men, it is tall men, right? So that obviously shows that there is some bias in employers. And employers, like everybody else, are guilty of what we call a similarity attraction paradigm. We tend to make friends with people who are similar to us. We tend to hire people who are similar to us. So that is a bit of a bias that we need to be cognizant of. So to conclude, I would just like to say that businesses, I think, are no longer simply about profit. They are very much about profit and people. How do you treat the people around you? And we're not just talking about your clients, but also your internal clients. How do you treat everybody around you? It's so important, interpersonal skills. So what is good for you is good for the business, and what is good for the business is good for you.